My name is Danya. When I got married, there were only two people in my in-laws' house, my mother-in-law and my brother-in-law. My husband was extremely handsome, and I was genuinely happy about this marriage. I thought, there's no big joint family, so that's a good thing. My brother-in-law's wife had passed away, and to this day, no one really knows what happened to her. When I asked, they didn't tell me much, just said she was sick and died. But they never mentioned what kind of illness it was. My brother-in-law was a tall man with large, white hands. He looked intimidating, always seemed angry. I had heard some strange things from people's whispers that his wife died because of him. They said he was extremely controlling, fought a lot, and even used to hit her. I started wondering, what if my husband turns out the same way? After all, he was raised in the same house, and our marriage wasn't even a love marriage, and it had been arranged by the families. Fear started building inside me. I was filled with so many worries. What if my husband also turns abusive? My mother-in-law wasn't much better. She was extremely strict and petty. She kept track of everything, always calculating things out loud. For example, she would say things like, this many eggs used this month means this much money spent. Or, if everyone eats one egg a day, it'll cost too much. So, no eggs in breakfast, only dry bread and tea. I didn't care much about food. I believe everyone gets what they're destined for. But what worried me was my husband. He was okay. Not overly loving, but not too harsh either. Things were going on day by day, but there was one thing that kept bothering me: the way my brother-in-law looked at me. It was the early days of my marriage, so naturally I used to dress up. And on top of that, my mother-in-law expected me to always be well-dressed and groomed. Whenever I wore a new outfit and looked especially good, my brother-in-law would look at me with strange eyes. It wasn't the kind of glance that accidentally falls on someone. That can happen to anyone. And I was his sister-in-law. If he looked at me with respect, as if admiring a sister, there would be no problem. But that wasn't it. He used to stare at me, not just glance, stare. He would look at me from head to toe and focus on parts of my body he had no right to even notice. I used to get extremely nervous and would start covering myself tightly with my dupatta. I noticed it many times, and no, it wasn't a coincidence. That man's stares were intentional, uncomfortable, and disturbing. Days passed in the house. These people weren't very wealthy. My brother-in-law and my husband both worked in the same company. One day when they came home from work, both of them looked upset and tense. My mother-in-law asked, "What happened?" Then she looked at me and told me to bring some water. I quickly went and brought it. But when I handed the glass to my husband, he suddenly pushed it away. The glass fell. I was startled. What was wrong with him? He got up and walked away without saying a word. My mother-in-law also looked worried. She turned to her elder son and asked, "Tell me, what's going on?" He replied, "I don't know who cast the evil eye on us, but both of us lost our jobs today. The company has shut down. We're not going to find jobs like that again. All we can do now is manual labor." They had originally gotten those jobs because of their maternal uncle's influence. Neither of them had a proper degree, so finding another good job was going to be nearly impossible. I was worried too. It was a serious situation. After all, we all lived in the same house. We were one family. But then my brother-in-law said something that really hurt me. He said, some people, when they enter a house, bring blessings and wealth with them, and some people, they bring nothing but destruction. My mother-in-law immediately supported what he said. Both of them looked at me as if I was cursed, as if I carried some kind of disease. That hurt deeply. I quietly went to my husband and told him what had happened. But he was already upset about losing his job. He said, "They're just stressed. If they said something, you should have let it go. Can't you see how serious this situation is? Even educated people aren't finding jobs these days, and we don't even have degrees." That made me angry. I said, "Well, then you should have studied, right? What were you all doing when it was time to get an education?" At this, my husband raised his hand to hit me. He stopped halfway, but still, that moment said a lot. He was about to hit me over just a few words. I walked away silently. There was a hint of guilt in his eyes. He knew he was taking his anger out on me, but he didn't apologize. He just left the room. I got back to my chores. It was part of my routine, but the whole day I felt broken. I stayed sad and kept crying until night. After that, both my husband and brother-in-law started looking for jobs, but deep down they knew it was useless. Every place they went asked for qualifications, and they had none. The only person who had helped them before, my mother-in-law's brother, had passed away. He had many connections. Now there was no one left to support them. The little savings we had were slowly being used up. We were only 4 people in the house, but with the way prices were rising, even managing that had become difficult. My mother-in-law had started cutting back on everything. No more eggs in the morning. She began rationing every little item. Put less milk in the tea, make the lentils watery, there's no need to cook meat, my mother-in-law would say. She began cutting down on everything, but even after all that, one day the money completely ran out. We didn't even have enough to eat. Then we started borrowing from neighbors, sometimes 1,000 rupees from one, sometimes 500 from another. That's how things kept going. But that wasn't a solution. That wasn't a way to live. My husband was extremely stressed because how long can you run a household on borrowed money? One day those people will say, we can't lend you anything anymore. During this whole time, my brother-in-law kept looking at me with disturbing eyes. I didn't tell my husband. He was already too troubled. I did try to bring it up once, but instead of listening, he scolded me. You care about household drama when we're struggling just to survive? If you really want to help me, then shut your mouth. Don't stress me out. I already have enough headaches. After that, I just stopped talking to him. And honestly, he didn't really want to talk to me either. I would quietly do his chores. That's all he needed. He was fine with that. Sometimes I used to wonder, maybe people who have love marriages are better off. Sure, they might fight too, but at least there's love between them. At least they feel something for each other. When they fight, they remember that they loved each other once. And maybe that helps heal things. But people like us, we never knew each other, never chose each other, just got tied into a relationship we didn't ask for. Life becomes strange like that. Fights still happen, just like in any home. But there's no trust that someone will care enough to fix things. When I stopped talking to my husband, he didn't even ask, why haven't you spoken to me in days? He didn't notice I was sad. He was too deep in his own problems, and yes, the problem was serious. Then someone told my husband, you should go abroad. You won't find a job here. Get fake documents made. They just have to look real. No one checks them over there. That suggestion made my husband's eyes light up. He and my brother-in-law had always taken shortcuts anyway. After all, even their last job was taken on fake degrees. They liked the idea, but my brother-in-law refused. He said, I can't go abroad. Someone has to stay back. And when you're gone, who's going to be here with the women? These 2 women can't manage the house alone. And to be fair, Bitgis, he had a point. But I didn't want that. I didn't want to be left alone in this house. Not without my husband. Because I knew my brother-in-law had bad intentions, and my mother-in-law already didn't like me at all. I told my husband, please don't go. Let your brother go instead. He replied, he's getting old. What will he do there? I'm younger. I'll manage better. I'm still young, my husband said. It's my duty to go. And you want to keep me from fulfilling my duty? You can't support me? I said, please don't go. I'll work. I'll support you. We'll manage together. But he shook his head. In our family, women don't work, he said. What you're calling support feels like shame to me. I don't want you working. Just stay home and eat in peace. I replied, I can't live without you. He looked at me coldly. Don't start with your movie-style drama. That emotional stuff doesn't work on me. Then he began preparing to leave for a foreign country. I got upset with him, but he didn't seem to care. Just before leaving, he came close to me. I said to him, you're not doing the right thing. When you come back, you won't find me the same. He said nothing, and then he left the country. After he was gone, my mother-in-law's behavior became even worse. She made me do all the housework. Before, she would at least cook one meal. Now she didn't even bother with that. I was exhausted all day from chores. That evening, my brother-in-law came home and said, give me a glass of water. When I handed it to him, he tried to grab my hand. I quickly pulled it back and the glass fell to the floor. My mother-in-law shouted at me, will your father pay for the broken glass? I felt shattered inside. My husband had been gone for only 2 days, and already this was happening to me. I began wondering, how will I survive all this for 2 whole years? My husband had told me before leaving that he'd have to take loans abroad, that he needed to make fake documents for a license, and he wouldn't be able to return for at least 2 years. I thought maybe I should go live with my parents. It wasn't the ideal choice, but it felt better than staying here. But my mother in law refused. This is your home now. Why would you go live there? She told my husband everything, and that night he fought with me over the phone. If you want to live with your parents, he said coldly, then stay there. I'll set you free. That sentence terrified me. For a woman, that kind of threat cuts deep. Then one day, I witnessed something that shook me. It had been 2 months since my husband left, only I knew what those 2 months had been like. Every single day, my mother-in-law would send complaints about me to my husband, and every night he would fight with me over the phone. I used to think, maybe if I talk to him for even 10 or 15 minutes at night, my heart will find some peace. But instead of peace, those few minutes turned into arguments. My life had become a nightmare. My brother-in-law harassed me every day, sometimes with words, sometimes with gestures. I stopped dressing up, but he'd still say things like, "Why don't you get ready anymore? You used to look so beautiful." What kind of brother-in-law says that to his Bobby? The scene I saw shook me to my core. My mother-in-law was sitting on the couch and my brother-in-law was holding her feet, begging her to agree to something. He was saying, "Please, just agree. He's not home. He'll never know. You have to support me. You don't even like her anyway." I couldn't fully understand who they were talking about, but the conversation felt dark, very wrong. My mother-in-law had a strange look on her face. She said, "Yes, I don't like her, but this isn't right. I can't allow this." My brother-in-law replied, "I'm asking your permission, otherwise I could have already done something. At least I'm being respectful in asking." Then he started yelling at her, being rude, and walked away angrily. One day we had some guests over. One of the women quietly pulled me aside and said something that left me completely numb. "Did you know your brother-in-law killed his wife? He used to abuse her terribly. At night we could hear screams coming from their room. And one day, they found her dead in that very room." When people asked what happened, he just said, "I don't know, she died in her sleep." From that day, I was terrified of him. I already kept my distance, but now I wouldn't even let him see me. I'd lock myself in my room whenever he came home. Days passed like that. Every single day filled with fear. I couldn't talk to my husband. What kind of husband was he anyway? He didn't care about me. Even though he sent money home, he never sent me even a rupee. He said, "What do you need money for?" He wouldn't even let me visit my parents. If I went for the day, I had to be back by evening. And I never told my family anything, because what could they even do? And my husband, he had made a habit of using the word divorce like it was nothing. Every little argument, he'd say, "I'll divorce you. I'll divorce you." One night I was in my room. The lock had broken. I was scared, so I sat in the room and quietly began reciting Allah's name, trying to stay calm. Then suddenly, my brother-in-law walked in. I was stunned. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "Do you need something?" He said, "Yes, I do need something." He started walking toward me. A woman can recognize the look in a man's eyes. I could see clearly what was in his eyes. I jumped up and ran toward the door, but he shut the door and stood in front of it, blocking the way. I started screaming for my mother-in-law, but he just laughed. I kept screaming, louder and louder. Her room was right opposite mine. She should have heard me by now, but she didn't come. That's when I realized. That night, when he was asking for her permission, this was what it was about. My mother-in-law had agreed to it because my husband wasn't home. And now, the beast inside him had been unleashed. I screamed until I lost my voice, but no one came. And then, he assaulted me. They didn't stop there. My mother-in-law and my brother-in-law both started beating me, torturing me, and left me half dead. I somehow managed to stand up, gather what little strength I had, and walked out of that house. I had nothing left to lose. I called my husband and told him everything in one breath. He was shocked. But then he said, "You're lying." I didn't go to my parents' house. I went straight to the police station. I filed a report and told them everything. That day, something inside me changed. I found courage. I found clarity because now the most precious thing I had was gone. My honor had been taken from me. The police filed the FIR. While I was still at the station, I called my father. He came and took me home. For days after that, my health was in bad shape, but my uncles, my cousins, my entire family stood beside me. They got my brother-in-law arrested and sent to jail. When my husband heard, he came back, but all he did was repeat, "This is all a lie. None of this happened." He accused me of lying. He accused my brother of conspiring against him. I don't know. Maybe someone had done black magic on him. Or maybe he was never really my husband at all. Maybe he never truly accepted me. My father stood firm. He told him, "We will not send our daughter back with you." And my husband said, "I don't even want her." Then he divorced me. After everything, the pain, the abuse, the betrayal, I still don't understand. What had I ever done to deserve this? It felt like I had no one in the world. Eventually, my brother-in-law got bail and was walking around free. We had to drop the case, because if it had gone on, society would have started throwing mud on my own character. That's just how our world works. Time kept passing. And then, I found out that my husband had gotten married again. Nearly 2 years later, I received news that didn't bring peace to my heart, but it did remind me of one thing, that when you do wrong to others, wrong finds its way back to you. The news was this. One day, my mother-in-law, my brother-in-law, and my husband were traveling in a rickshaw, and the rickshaw met with a terrible accident. My mother-in-law died on the spot. My brother-in-law, too, died shortly after. My husband was badly injured, and now he lies paralyzed on a bed. He can't walk or move of his own will. His new wife takes care of him, and the two of them live together now, like that. God says that the one who breaks someone's heart commits one of the greatest sins. In these 2 years, I heard so many things from people. Many said, "She must have done something. Women like her always cause trouble." Because in our society, the woman is always blamed, always doubted, always shamed. But now that justice has been served, I finally feel at peace. They wronged me like I was nothing. They treated me as if even God had abandoned me. But God showed them, and showed me, that no one escapes the justice of this world, that the world is built on consequences, on karma. Today, I thank Allah, because I'm standing on my own feet. I have a job, I provide for my younger siblings, I try to bring joy into their lives. And as for me, I've decided I don't want to get married again. I just want to live my life this way, peacefully, strong, free.